My entitled neighbor moved his fence onto my property, smirking, "You weren't using this space anyway." When I took him to court, he laughed. Good luck winning against me. Weeks later, the judge handed me the verdict, and my neighbor turned pale as he realized he had just lost his entire backyard. Living in a quiet suburb of Columbus, Ohio, my wife and I enjoyed the peace of our modest home. Our backyard was our sanctuary, a place for weekend barbecues and morning coffees. Our neighbor, Rick Dawson, was a man in his late 50s with a constant smirk and an air of entitlement. He often boasted about his connections in the community. One autumn morning, I noticed a new wooden fence extending 10 feet into our property. Rick was supervising its construction. "Rick," I said, "this fence is on my property." He smirked. "You weren't using this space anyway." I hired a surveyor who confirmed the encroachment. When I showed Rick the results, he laughed. Good luck winning against me in court. Determined, I filed a lawsuit seeking the removal of the fence and restoration of our property. Weeks later, in court, the judge ruled in our favor. Rick was ordered to remove the fence, cover legal fees, and compensate us for the inconvenience. His smirk vanished as he realized he had just lost his entire backyard. In the following days, the fence was dismantled. Rick avoided eye contact, his arrogance replaced by a subdued presence. This experience taught us the importance of standing up for our rights and maintaining community harmony. After the court ruling, I thought things would settle down. The fence was torn down by a crew Rick begrudgingly hired, and for a few days, the yard felt like ours again. But Rick wasn't done. The first sign was small. One morning I found our garbage bin tipped over, trash scattered across the driveway. I didn't say anything, assuming it was raccoons or maybe wind. But it kept happening. Every Tuesday, like clockwork. Then, the lawn. My wife loves her garden. She spends hours out there planting tulips and trimming the hedges. One morning, she called me out. Someone had dumped what smelled like motor oil along the flower bed closest to the fence line, her favorite part of the yard. The grass was dying in thick black streaks, and some of the flowers wilted instantly. I knew it was Rick. Nobody else had a reason. I confronted him, right there in his driveway. I didn't even knock, just walked up. "You pour oil on my lawn?" I asked. He grinned like it was all a game. "You think I'd waste good oil on your weeds?" I called the cops. They came out, took a report, but without security footage, they said there wasn't much they could do. That lit a fire in me. I went straight to the hardware store and bought 2 outdoor cameras and mounted them the same night. A week later, I caught him. He waited until 2 a.m. wearing all black and walked along the edge of our yard with a metal rake, dragging it across our lawn, tearing into the grass like he was plowing dirt. I handed the footage to the police the next day. They came back with a warning for him. Still, nothing really changed. It just made him more careful. That's when the letters started. Not mailed, taped to our front door in the middle of the night. Each one typed in bold black font, no return address. They were short, cruel, and personal. "Hope your wife likes dirt for roses. You don't deserve that yard. I was here before you. You won't outlast me." We showed the police, but again, no fingerprints, no witness, no real lead. Then it escalated. One night, we were watching TV when we heard a loud bang outside. I rushed to the backyard and found one of our windows shattered. A brick lay on the grass below it. No note this time, just glass and silence. The cops showed up again. They questioned Rick. Of course, he denied everything. But I saw the look in his eyes when the officers walked back to their cruiser. He wasn't just angry anymore. He looked pleased. He liked knowing we were rattled. My wife wanted to move. "It's just land," she said, voice shaking. "I don't feel safe here." But that was exactly what Rick wanted. He wanted us gone. After losing in court, he was trying to win by making life miserable. I promised her I wouldn't let that happen. So I started digging. I went to the county clerk's office, pulled old property maps, tax filings, and building permits. I found something. Years ago, Rick had built a small addition to the back of his house, a sunroom. But the permit said it had to be set back a certain distance from the property line. I walked the edge of our lawn with a measuring tape and snapped photos. According to the permit and the zoning rules, Rick's sunroom was too close to the line. Way too close. I took everything I found and brought it to the city's zoning department. The man at the desk flipped through my stack of papers and raised an eyebrow. "This doesn't look legal," he said. He told me it might take a while to investigate, but they'd get back to me. I went home feeling like something finally shifted. A few weeks passed. Rick stayed quiet. No more letters, no more trash, no more oil. It almost felt like peace. Then, early one morning, I saw a white city truck pull up in front of his house. 2 officials got out. I watched from behind my curtain as they measured, took notes, and snapped photos. Later that week, Rick got a notice stapled to his door. A big orange one. Notice of zoning violation. Structure non-compliant. Correction required. He ripped it off and stormed around his yard like a lunatic, fists clenched, face red. That was the moment I knew the game wasn't over. Not by a long shot. After that orange violation notice showed up, Rick's attitude changed again, but not how I expected. He stopped smirking. He stopped glaring. He stopped doing anything. For a while, it was like he disappeared. His car stayed parked. His lawn grew shaggy. I didn't see him for days. At first, I thought he might be out of town. But then one morning I saw him through his kitchen window, just sitting at the table, staring blankly at a wall. No TV on. No coffee mug. Just staring. That shook me more than his threats ever did. Then the contractors arrived. Not for Rick. For the house next to his. It was an older couple who'd lived there for over 20 years, quiet, always waved, but never talked much. Apparently they'd sold their place to a young couple from out of town. The couple had big plans: add a deck, redo the driveway, take down the chain-link fence separating their backyard from Rick's. I didn't think much of it until one of the workers knocked on my door looking pissed. "You know your neighbor?" he asked. Unfortunately. He came out screaming this morning. Said we were trespassing. Started yelling about property lines and said he was gonna call his lawyer from the city council. I sighed. He says that to everybody. The next day, the couple came by. They were polite, nervous. They asked if I had the name of the surveyor I used. Said Rick told them their fence was 2 feet onto his land. Of course, it wasn't. Rick was pulling the same stunt again. I gave them everything I had. The surveyor's info. My court documents. Even the city's zoning contact. They were grateful and a little freaked out. The woman whispered, "He watches us from the window." A week later, the new couple filed a restraining order. Now Rick had 2 active legal disputes on his hands. I figured maybe this was it. Maybe he'd finally give up. But Rick wasn't a give-up kind of guy. He was a cornered animal. And cornered animals do stupid things. One night around 1 a.m., I woke up to loud, panicked banging on the door. It was my neighbor from the other side, the older couple who lived behind us. The woman was shaking. "Call 911, she said. We saw flames. We ran outside, and sure enough, smoke was rising from the back of Rick's house. Not a huge fire, but enough. The sunroom, the one in violation, was burning. Not an inferno, but clear signs of fire damage and smoke coming from the roof. The fire trucks came fast. They got it under control before it spread. Nobody was hurt. The next day, I found out something that made my stomach turn. Fire investigators said the blaze started from an electrical issue in the sunroom. But one of the firefighters pulled me aside privately. "You didn't hear it from me," he said, "but that place had gas cans stored inside the sunroom. Whole corner of it. Almost like he wanted it to catch." I looked over at Rick's house that afternoon. He stood there, arms crossed, watching the charred remains of the sunroom. He didn't look sad. He didn't look mad. He looked like he was waiting. A few days later, another letter appeared on my door. Not typed this time, handwritten. Small block letters. "You like court?" Let's keep going. I turned it over. On the back, it read, "See you in Zoning Board Appeals." I almost laughed. Almost. He really thought he could reverse the city's ruling. That he could get his illegal sunroom back, like he was entitled to build anything, anywhere, and the world had to bend around him. But I wasn't the only one tired of him now. The new couple filed a joint complaint with the city, citing harassment and boundary disputes. The zoning board received multiple letters from neighbors, including the retired vet down the street and even Margaret, Rick's own wife. I didn't know she had it in her. In her letter, she wrote, "I've lived next to these people for years. I love our home, but I don't support what my husband has done. I want no part in his fights. I just want peace." That hit me hard. I'd always seen her as silent support, but maybe she'd just been stuck. Maybe she was as much a victim of Rick's madness as the rest of us. And then came the twist I never expected. 2 weeks before the zoning board appeal, a moving truck showed up in front of Rick's house. It didn't stop at his place. It stopped at mine. My wife came running inside. "There's a guy out there asking for you by name." I walked out, confused, and saw a man in a blazer holding a clipboard. "You're Mr. Redacted?" he asked. "Yeah. What's going on?" He handed me a letter. Official looking. Thick. Inside was an offer. A purchase offer. Not from Rick, but from a property investor group. They wanted to buy my home at 30% over market value. I scanned the document and found the name of the managing contact. Rick Dawson. He was trying to buy us out, but not with his own money. He'd partnered with some sleazy local investor to make our lives miserable until we sold, and now he was trying to scoop it up himself. That was his big plan. Scare us, harass us, devalue the neighborhood, then buy the land cheap and flip it. And here's the thing. That plan? It wasn't over. Not yet. I didn't sign the offer. I didn't even respond. I took the packet and filed it away in a drawer I rarely opened. Then I called my lawyer. He told me what I already guessed. The offer itself wasn't illegal. But the method, everything Rick had done before that, could be tied into a bigger harassment case, especially if we could prove the sale was a result of coercion. That was the word. Coercion. My lawyer said if we built a case around it and tied in the zoning violations, the restraining order, the property damage, we could potentially take this a lot further. He even suggested contacting local news. I wasn't sure about going that far. But my wife was. "We're not victims," she said, with a fierceness I hadn't seen since the day she tore up that first threatening letter. "We're going to bury him." So we documented everything. I reached out to the new couple next door, the old folks behind us, even Margaret. Yes, his wife. She met me at the local diner, quiet and nervous, but once she started talking, it all spilled out. Rick had drained their savings for his legal fights. He hadn't worked in months. He had a drinking problem. And worse, he had a plan. He was trying to get everyone to move out, she whispered. He wanted to buy the properties cheap, flip them, and make a fortune. I asked her straight, "Would you testify?" She nodded. "I'm done protecting him." That was it. We filed a civil suit. Me, the young couple, the older folks. It was joint. We had pictures, letters, video, police reports, city violations, and now his wife's testimony. We submitted everything. Rick didn't show up to the first hearing. Just his lawyer, looking tired and annoyed. The judge gave him 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, Rick came. He looked awful, unshaven. Gaunt. The smirk was gone. The judge read through the complaint, line by line. At the end, she looked up and said, "Mr. Dawson, I don't think you understand the weight of what you've done." Rick tried to speak. Blamed stress. Blamed unfair zoning laws. Blamed the changing neighborhood. The judge didn't care. She ruled in our favor. Rick was ordered to pay damages, real ones. Thousands. Tens of thousands. Not just to me, but to every family involved. He was forced to take down what was left of the illegal sunroom. He was banned from contacting any of us. And Margaret? She filed for divorce the same day. And then came the real end. 6 months later, his house was listed for auction. He lost it all. His savings, his property, his reputation. Nobody wanted him around anymore. Even the investor group dropped him when the lawsuit hit the press. The local paper picked up the story. The headline read, entitled "Neighbor Loses Everything After Fence War Backfires." Neighbors smiled more after that. The young couple added their deck. The old folks threw a barbecue and invited the whole street. My wife planted new flowers. And me? Yeah, I made some mistakes. I let him bait me. I let the anger sit too long. I could have handled something sooner. Maybe softer. But I also stood my ground. Rick thought he was untouchable. That he could walk over people and claim what wasn't his. Now he lives in a 1-bedroom rental, 50 minutes outside of town. No fence. No backyard. And nobody left to smirk at.